Welcome back. So the sun came up a couple of hours ago and it's been a tricky one. You see this big bank of cloud here. We've been approaching and then passing into a weather system which initially had the kind of concern that there's going to be loads and loads of wind in it, and then as you get a little bit closer you realise that it's not loads and loads of wind, it's lots of little squalls all kind of clubbed together. So we're just making our way through now. We've got about 8 knots on, and that's the best we've seen in a couple of hours. Need a bit of halyard tension. I just find these situations not stressful anymore. It's like waiting for a train. It's like, oh, here we go again. It's is it going to be that we keep following every wind shift and we tack and tack and tack? Are we going to put the engine down and then put the engine back up every time the wind drops off? Or are we just going to kind of stick it out? It's a tricky one, but I'll try and keep the camera out of the wind here a little bit, in the shade of the cockpit. But you can see behind me this darker patch of it, lighter down here. When we approached this morning, it was just one big wall of black, so I actually basically slowed down just to give it time to resolve. We're not racing. Up ahead, you see it gets lighter and lighter. So having done this for a long distance now, I look in there and I don't see anything that like really troubles me. You can see the size of the waves. If someone's blowing on a coffee cup, the coffee cup's not very big. Coffee cup's not getting blown on very hard, and the waves are not that strong. So there's nothing in here that tells me that there's like 50 knots in there. If down in South America, that kind of way, you've got to watch out for pamperos, which are more like a big white cigar in the sky, and suddenly you get 50 knots. You get that on the Great Lakes as well in North America. So this is widely distributed. There's little angling slats of rain coming down, and then you've got these fluffy bottoms as the cumulus is kind of ripping itself apart as it drops what it's got. So I can look at this and go, all right, I'm expecting the wind slowly back as we go around it. We're on the southwestern corner of it now, aiming probably towards the western corner. It's in its own way going towards the northeast, which in the northern hemisphere is where these things are heading, and it's rotating anti-clockwise, which means it's going to modify the wind around me, but only for a short period, and the modifications are going to come quickly. You heard the autopilot is saying we're off course. But then ahead it's gone pretty light pretty quickly. I remember when I did the Clipper race, I did a lot of running away from squalls because I was kind of inexperienced. And later on I talked to a guy called Brendan Hall, who has a fantastic book called Team Spirit that you should have a look at if you want to know more about that race and the leadership lessons that came out of it. But Brendan said all you used to do is heave to, let the squall go over and then keep going. Brendan won the race. Which you think is a better tactic? Okay, so had a bowl of cereal because we didn't really have breakfast. We were up at 5 this morning. This kind of stuff where I'm a million miles from anywhere, I'm up and about probably every hour. I've got the AIS alarm on, I've got the lights on. I'm only doing like 6 knots or something, so the horizon's an hour away. A vessel would have to be aiming directly at me. So up at 5, and we've been up since 5, and it's where am I looking? 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All right, so we've had breakfast. There we go. So we are 189 miles from Bermuda, and looks like we could come to port about 5 degrees. So 7.3 knots. My target speed for this voyage is 8 knots, which is the hull speed, give or take, of a 40-foot boat. This boat will drive at 8 knots very, very easily. Lovely light conditions. and we can see now that we're coming out of that squall system. This is about 2 hours later from when I was saying, can you see the little thin band? You can see about 7 miles on the water. Maybe I'm a little bit lower now, so let's say between 5 and 7 miles. Normally I'm a bit higher up on the boats I'm on. But a ship, when its superstructure comes over the horizon, that's like 10 to 12 miles away. You think how high a ship is. A cloud base is like 30 miles away, or a bit more perhaps. So we were looking through, you can see over there kind of same thing, see that line of cloud? We're seeing that cloud. That cloud could be 30, 40 miles away. So we were looking out through the storm. Problem was, we were going so slowly we had to wait for it to move over us and for us to move out of it. But as expected, here we are. So let's have a game of what's wrong with what then. See this situation with the backstay? This is how they should look. This guy comes from the top of the mast. We're very close to it. Down. This is the check stay. So we've got what's our main backstay and our check stay here. And then we look across. See that? Look, the main stay is up and the check stay is down. Now, if I was going to grind that on ahead of a jibe, what would I actually be grinding on? Bearing in mind that we have done lots of reefs and I'm taking reefs in and out. Look at this, see that? It's on the back of the sail. If you don't have full running backstays on your boat, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a kind of fishing job that we'll do later on. The other thing we've got is that, see how much hook there is in the jib? Because we've got all this width here, we have down here a bit of a slung together, but fully functional turning eye. We can put a third sheet on. It's the green rope that goes across the trampoline over there. We'll bring that across and then we can pull this jib out. Actually, I'm attached. Isn't it freaky to step onto this thing? We can pull this out and change the angle of the sail. Outboard lead will increase the speed for very, very little extra effort, you know, just put that on. We've also got a winch that now is going backwards. So this boat had this issue. Oh, look at the engine. We had this issue during the race, and the look-see that I had at that time said that the winch could not really be taken apart very easily without taking the winch off its base. Is that possible? I'm not going to attempt to strip a winch at sea. That's like, just drop one thing, oh, and there it's gone. So we'll wait until we get Bermuda, then we'll have a look. But that winch, I put a single bit hitch on it because I don't trust it. If it turns backwards, this single bit hitch, otherwise known as a tugman's hitch, will stop the sheet from disappearing. So a couple little things like that. So this is very nice. So like we said earlier, pointing the wrong way, no wind at all, it's the worst day of my life. And now it's like, oh, this is great, we're doing 7-8 knots and a couple little jobs to do and wondering when the next cup of tea is.
Okay, well, as always, here's a little narration to what's going on here. Nice conditions here after the squalls, after the mess. We're about 180 miles off Bermuda at this point, and shortly in the video we're going to go through into the next day. Now, I do apologize if this video is not too fancy compared to normal, not that mine ever really are, but had a bit of issue with my computer that I normally use for doing the editing on this, and a friend very kindly lent me his. Suddenly I'm using Final Cut Pro and I have no idea what I'm doing, so you get a very simple video while I go through the basics. But yeah, here we go. We're pulling this sheet in. You see it's over the top of the jackstay there. Normally you try and get all your lines under the jackstay so you can clip on and rush to the front if you need to in an emergency, but this is so far back that you'd more than likely be clipping on at the front of the cockpit and it wouldn't really affect you. So that's Dyneema that that's lashed in with. It's not at the moment a solid part of the boat. It will be very soon. It's great on these kind of boats that you can get these outboard leads. Take some of the hook out of the jib. It stops the mainsail from backwinding on the front third and gives you much better flow. It does look a bit like this mainsail's pretty banging tight I have a feeling I'll release it off later on. Okay, so that's just that worked onto there. And then I'm going to cross sheet. So at this point I have to get very cautious and just think about, okay, where is this going to go? It needs to go underneath that backstay. Can't go over the top of it. You'll immediately start to cause an override if it goes around that winch on top of the line before it gets to the other winch. And just whip in a few lines on it. You will see that like my backstays are fully made up, absolutely top to bottom with rope. And for all the time I've ever taught sail training, we have to do it that way. When we're working with lines where there's a division between, you know, this green line and this this white one on this weird winch that's made up, then we can yeah, see how light I'm being on my fingers there. I'm kind of like hamming it slightly so you can see it, but I'm aware of the fact the winch could back off at any moment. But yeah, if you're dividing the load between a couple of winches, then you don't need to worry about completely filling each one. There's hardly any tension on that whatsoever. That does look a bit better. Yeah, he's kind of waving at it. Yeah, he's happy about that. Not sure if there's going to be any speed increase. It's not like it suddenly takes off, but the front of the main has stopped lifting. Remember, the halyard tension's a little bit loose there, and suddenly it's steadied down. So that's better than it was. There'll be all sorts of machinations now as I attempt to get it so it's going faster for the video. It takes a while. The thing with this as well is you've got to, oh, look at that hook in the jib. You've got to get to know the boat. You've got to get to know what it likes. Some of it is knowing the polars, some of it is knowing the sail setup. There's a slight increase there. I think it was like 6.5, now it's 7.1. Not much to really write home about, but yeah, that's how you get it
a little bit. But it's that kind of thing all the time, hey? Just trying to get little advantages here and there. Not particularly because we're racing. It's not what it's about. It's just about knowing the boat, understanding the boat, trying to get the best from the boat as we're going along. Well, that's definitely slowed it down. I have no polars for this boat, so I'm not sure what it's meant to be doing at any particular time. Well, we can ease that main off. That's super banging tight. Oh, that's a mistake. See that? The main sheet jammer's closed. If I had to jump on deck and ease that off, that would be hard. Maybe drop the Traveller a little bit. Yeah. We'll keep messing around, trying to get it going a bit quicker. Yeah, this running around the base of the winches like this is not good if you don't have a dedicated guide on the bottom of your winch, which some boats will have. But there's so little pressure on that. I'm not worried. All right, cool. Well, this might be the right time for a sleep. Absolutely fabulous view. So Bermuda should be like over here somewhere. No, well, it's hiding away, but it's at 30 miles that way. We've lined up the approach perfectly, and we're going right down the cut at St. George's. So be about, we're doing what, 9.5 knots at the moment, and Bermuda's about 30 miles ahead, so it's all pretty close. Pretty good day, really nice conditions. You can see out here there's about 10 to 15 knots blowing. It's blowing from the west and we're going north, so really nice angle. And yeah, it's been a day of relaxation in that nothing major has happened. Now last night we had a bit of excitement. You see we have some new wires going through here. After that difficult day with the solar charging situation, we just got to a point during the night that there was no power left, and I found it completely ridiculous that I was running the engine to motor through a light patch and I've got an issue with no voltage. So I wired the main batteries into the outboard, just sneaking a little power in through the kind of back end of the batteries on this are wired in parallel. So there's a 12-volt system, but there are two batteries. So I just put the little bit of power coming out of the outboard engine onto the battery furthest away from the load, and it seemed to really help and give us a nice boost. We've got 12.4 here going into the evening. That's okay when you're so desperate for power as we are right now. I've had the autopilot running on its performance settings so that it can hold a narrow avenue, and I'm not too worried about that. In about 3 hours I'm going to be connecting the engine, and we've got about half an hour motoring in, and then we're going to be alongside, so not too fast. So yeah, it's been good. I've been cleaning through the boat, doing what I can. I hate arriving in a mess. I had a bit of a shave and tidied up. It's just one of those things, you kind of get closer and closer. I had a lot of eggs today. I used up all the eggs, so my food today I have mostly been eating eggs. Eggs with mayonnaise, eggs with mustard, eggs with a little bit of corned beef and some peppers and onions, that kind of stuff, which is very nice. But it's a nice standard day at sea without too much going on. I've got to say, I really appreciate that after the heat of the days before, a few teething issues. It's going to be nice to pop into Bermuda for 24 hours and get the Sea Talk cable that we need. So this guy, remember this little cable here that I had in my bag, which is about that long, is keeping the autopilot going, and its mate, which is fused, is down here. So we need about a 1 meter Sea Talk cable. We'll pick that up in Hamilton. A few other bits. We'll get more gasoline, some more water, more fuel for me, I guess, and more food. Yeah, but it's been very good. But until we get to that, have a look at this sunset. No, you cannot get better than that. Look at that sucker. How big it is, baby! The lensing of the atmosphere making it huge. There are worse ways to spend your time than a life messing about with boats. Okay, so that's the arrival checklist. Fuel up, done that. Call Bermuda Radio, we're about to do that in a minute. Check the documents and the license, and I've written down the Delaware license, as well as, of course, our call sign and our MMSI, that kind of stuff. Check the availability of the inner dock, which is where I want to go with the boat when we get in. I know exactly where I'm going here in Bermuda. I'd love to be alongside there. Edit the videos and prepare the GoPro. I've got very little space left on my SD card, so I've just got to try and thin things out a little bit. Prep lines and fenders, calls home, check the main halyard, check the anchor, and then get the centerboard to the equal setting, we'll talk about it in a second, and then check the engine. So we've got it's written on the wall in a pencil, and it just rubs off again with a wet wipe. So the centerboard is just a case of getting the centerboard so it's at the same depth as the rudder. I like the rudder to be protected by the centerboard going in. It's very, very narrow in here. If something goes wrong, you've got very little time to react. So I'll have the anchor like literally hanging off the bow. We have an outboard engine, and I just put new fuel in the tank because like a zillion things right there that could go wrong. I've also got over here in the bow the parachute anchor ready to go. It's very, very deep off Bermuda. It goes from 6,000 meters to 3,000 meters to 1,000 meters to like 30 meters. So from 18,000 feet to 100 feet in half a mile. So if you have a problem and for some reason you can't heave to, and one of the issues I have is one that would mean I couldn't heave to, I'll tell you about in a second, having the sea anchor ready is a very smart move. So the issue, so the dagger board then is at least 5 feet down, which is a setting I can see on deck, and then if something happens and we are going towards the rocks, then we will hit the centerboard, which is made of wood and is somewhat sacrificial compared to the rudder, which we need to get home. We can still get home to Boston with a damaged bottom of our centerboard, but if we put a lot of torque on that rudder, we're not going anywhere. So the issue I've got is with the main halyard. It's on the deck there right now, out in the cockpit. I can see from a maneuver I did last night, I did a sail evolution where I was going to a deep reef, a third reef, and the sail would not come down, and it's because the main halyard has chafed through. So, you know, it's older, we just did a big race on it, time, everything else doesn't really need to be explained out, but for some reason the sheath is separated from the core. It's Dyneema, which means it's a kern mantle rope. The core has got all the strength, and the exterior really is just used for protection, for rope identification, to make it has a much better friction qualities on winches and jammers, and it means that the jammer is grabbing the sheath and the core's running. So I've got the main halyard sitting up on the winch there, double wrapped on a winch with my outboard sheet, just in case it starts to creep on the jammer. It'll hold on the tugman's hitch that I've got on the winch. So when it comes to lowering it down, the broken piece of sheath is inside the mast. It's a 2-to-1 halyard, so it starts at the top of the mast, it goes down and through a block that's on the mainsail, goes up and over a sheath on the mast, and then comes down inside to give you more purchase. The damage is inside the mast now. So I have spent time this afternoon milking all of the sheath off the core as far as I can. I got about 2 meters off it, and I'm hoping that will lay the sheath out flat enough that for one time it'll go over the roller at the top, over the sheath at the top of the mast, and I'll be able to get the mainsail down. If I can't get the mainsail down, then I cannot go below, I believe, deep reef, and then we will solve that problem somehow as we're going along. The wind angle the way it is now, we'd be going into St. George's dead into the wind. So what I'd probably do is go into St. George's with the main pinned in the centre and dead in the middle of the boat, and me dead in the middle of the channel, and my luck hopefully dead on, and then straight up the channel and then onto anchor, and I can work out the issues afterwards. So I have a bit of a plan, but hence the parachute anchor being here. If we get into a pickle, I can heave 2 deep reefed, but better to have every base covered. So spend time today cleaning. I hate going into port and it's all a mess. Like, our boat is clean, you know, everything is as it should be. I took a little bit of time today. They've got these very neat little, very flat lights that are brilliant but shockingly bright. So I put some tape on that one. Then we've got a whole new business proposal for that end of the boat now. It's all gone very red and very nice, but much easier on the eye, and obviously with this one turned off, much more appropriate for nighttime. I'm not necessarily the biggest believer in red light, and a lot of situations, like, I am not going to look up and look into somebody's eyes with my white headlight on because there's nobody else on the boat. There is nothing around me at all. I've seen one ship on the entire trip, and it was in sight at a range of about 5 miles for half an hour. So there's no requirement for night sight. We are not navigating by anything where I need to have night sight, but the possibility of taking a misstep in monochrome light is literally empirically understood now. Shadows are different with monochrome light, and I can't discern the ropes very easily with monochrome light. So I'm more using the red for the fact that I can just soften everything down. It's easier on my eyes, and I've got the option of whatever I want. This doesn't go any lower than that, so it's either head torch, interior light, or put some tape over that one. So polish the little medallion up. Now I know it's the Darwin to Ambon yacht race in 2015, and I can see this one in the light, Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race, and the Percy Island Yacht Club there. So it's good to have parts of the boat's history on board. We also have down here, which I am taking to America with me. This is my incoming goods that I have to declare, I guess, going into Bermuda. Inside here, oh, getting a bit mildewed, I better watch that. Come on, buddy. This is the bottle of rum that we got for doing the Caribbean 600. Oh, something's falling slowly inside it. Oh, okay, well, but a memento for the owner of a job well done, getting the boat firstly all the way down from New England to Antigua, and then getting a crew together, and then getting the boat into the race. We discussed before how difficult that is with all the safety stuff. Boat hadn't done any kind of racing before. I helped a bit with that, and then getting around the race course and everything else. So we'll look at getting a good result at some time in the future. We finished, we did okay, and we got a bottle of rum for it. So we've got some little mementos, but yeah, the boat's you know, at its best just before we arrive. I've had a bit of a shave. Like, do we have to turn up looking like a bag of shit? I don't think so. It's not necessary. So that's my take on it, and I'll be hard pushed to change it. So we've got about 3 hours to go now, so I'm going to get a little bit of something to eat. I'll make sure that just before I get to the cut, I'll have some coffee or something. So I don't smoke anymore, so I use the caffeine rather than nicotine as a mental acuity. And other than that, I'm going to enjoy the view out the window and chill out and listen to my book, I think.